Want to take note of everyone that's here. I particularly want to, since tonight I'm not going to speak about my mom, but I want to mention that the presence of Judy Goldman, without whom my mother would never have gotten to Baltimore in the first place, and I don't think I would be here right now. So you can thank her as well. And her granddaughter the other day gave a very nice speech at her bas mitzvah. I'm talking about Lizzie, where she mentioned and spoke all about my mother as well. It's nice to see that they're carrying on a very nice family tradition. But if I go into that, I'll spend a half hour, so I'll go right to my topic I wanted to speak about tonight. I was thinking this year what to do for an occasion like this, and it occurred to me that, it's for my mother, and as many of you know, she had to persevere through many situations. It's like an Eshes Chail type of model, and I'm thinking of the fact that in Jewish history, as in most history, it's usually written by men and about men, and it's not too often that we have, literally in the records, things about famous Jewish women. Aren't too many, but I think Gracia Mendez is among the most famous. And therefore, we're talking about something model. I was thinking, not that my mother is Gracia Mendez, but on the other hand, I think it may give us a little bit of an insight into the challenges that were faced by Jewish women and others in perilous times, and how one has to summon all kinds of reserves of courage and resourcefulness and all kinds of, what shall I say, qualities, in order just to survive, first of all, as a human being, and second of all, as a Jew. So without any further ado, I'll get right into this, because it's a long story. And this takes us back. At this time I had, aside from Jake Shuchman, who always does the heavy lifting and the hard work, we had additional heavy lifting that Ruben and Mayor Verschleiser, kind of just before you all came in here, to come here like busy bees and actually get a real map up there. Somebody who's a teacher by background just doesn't feel comfortable ever talking about anything in history without a map. Now, and it's of Europe. I hope you'll be able to see it. Did our best of Europe in the 1600s. I'm really talking about something in the 1500s, but the map is roughly the same, and it's a point because we're going to go all over the place on this. This is the life of a person that moves from pillar to post. And so we start our story with Spain very quickly over here. I hope you can see it, all the way in this extremity of Europe, which long ago had Spain, Kingdom of Spain, which actually wasn't a Kingdom of Spain. In the Middle Ages, it was a bunch of kingdoms, Castile and Aragon and Navarre and others, and had the largest Jewish community in the world. Arguably the quantity as well as quality. And then things went bad. And so for our purposes, in 1391, a spontaneous group of riots broke out in Seville. Those who were in our shul trip last year, Seville is a very pretty, beautiful city. All the rest of it has a lot of bloody Jewish history to it. And these huge riots broke out against the Jews and spread all over the country, and the result was an unprecedented wave of mob violence against the Jews, as a result of which 50% of the Jews in Spain converted. The 50% were those who were at the wrong place at the wrong time. I think I've described it here in the past. If you were in a place where a mob was or something like this, they probably put a knife to your throat, and the vast majority of Jews in Spain found themselves in very tough situations, and they converted. The other half weren't in those places at those times, even though they went through tough times. And the result is, from 1391 to 1492, for a century, you had a funny situation in which you have families all over the Jewish community in which part of the family is Jewish and part of the family is Christian, simply because the ones who were forced to convert were not permitted to go back to Judaism once the riots ended. The Catholic Church, like the Jewish religion, to be perfectly honest, is always conflicted on this. You have, I guess what you call in Hebrew, tchilasa ba'onus v'sofa b'ratzon. If something is done under conditions of force, does that count as far as conversion is concerned? In a couple of weeks, I hope to talk about the Crusades. At that time, the Catholic Church took the position that when you're forced to convert, it doesn't count. But in Spain, they took the opposite position, and therefore you had all these Jews that were forced to stay Christians, they, their children, their grandchildren. And the cousins, though, who live on the same block very often, or not far away, were Jewish. And it bothered the Spanish a lot, simply because what are all these Jews going to bar mitzvahs, or these Christians, I should say, going to bar mitzvahs and weddings and things of this nature, if they're supposed to be Christians, and they don't show up in church enough, and all the rest of it. And for 100 years, from 1391 to 1492, they had this tension, which the Spanish finally resolved by setting up the Inquisition in 1481. And the Inquisition meant that we're going after you, and therefore you better choose real fast. They give a year of grace, and after that year of grace, anybody's doing anything Judaizing, Jewish whatsoever, as you all know, will be arrested and possibly burned at the stake. It happened a lot of times. And they took it to its nth degree. In 1492, they actually kicked out the Jewish Jews. Okay? I want to be very clear about this. Until 1492, if you were among those Jews who were lucky enough for one reason or another never to have converted or been forced to convert in the first place, you were permitted to be Jewish. But your brother, your cousin, your uncles, and your nephews aren't if they were among the other group of Jews. Okay? And then they kicked out all the Jews, the Jewish Jews, so that they wouldn't act as a bad influence on the Christian Jews, as it were. The language of the decree I've discussed here in the past. They actually talk about the great crimes of the Jews and giving them siddurim and teaching them how to make brachas and all kind of other Jewish things which are terrible. And so the Jews in 1492 were faced with a terrible question. What do? Half the Jews convert because you don't want to give up your house, your car, and all the rest of it. Half the Jews leave. Of the ones who convert, I'm sure many of them thought, you sort of justify to yourself, this will blow over, they'll change their mind. Even Ferdinand and Isabella at the very end were considering at the last minute accepting a Jewish bribe to call the whole thing off. And so maybe it won't happen. But the fact of the matter is that half the Jews converted. So what about the other half? So here you have an interesting situation which is going to dominate our whole talk tonight. Some of those Jews did what I'm doing right now. They moved this way, right? And they leave and they settle here, 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 and all these other places. So they go to places where you're permitted to be Jewish. These are the Sephardim Tohorim. These are the Sephardic Jews who never convert. They don't bend the knee. And the result is they lose their fortunes, they lose their property, they lose all the rest of it. Many of them lose their lives, but they give it up for Yiddishkeit. And it's a heroic story, it's a tragic story. Again, we've talked about it in the past. And they go usually to the Ottoman Empire or other places in the Arab world, places where you're permitted to be Jewish. But many Jews did not. I'm talking about the frum ones who didn't convert. Many of the Jews, maybe majority, we're not sure. Many Jews did the following. Look what I'm doing. They go to the next country over, to Portugal. Okay? It's right next door. And that's like moving from Baltimore to, Cleveland or something like that. Not that far away. And not even. And the idea was, you don't want to go and schlep all the way to the Arab world. Who knows what it's like over there. You don't want to go to faraway places. Once you go in the high seas, you're subject to piracy and who knows what. Here, if you go on the land thing, if you go a couple hundred miles away by foot, then you can survive there. And probably the Spanish, as everybody thought, will change their mind. They did not know what you and I know, which is the Spanish were never going to change their mind. But that's what they thought and they hoped. And so many Jews were admitted into Portugal, which means the Kingdom of Portugal, which at that time, as we'll see in a minute, was going through a commercial boom, invited in these Jews because everybody knew the Spanish Jews that we're talking about, in general, had a reputation usually being businessmen. So it's one thing to bring in what you call people from the third world or something like this, who are not going to bring any capital into the country. It's another thing in bringing in refugees who are rich or have skills, marketable skills, and will network all over the world with other merchants who are Jewish and otherwise, and therefore will add to your national revenue, because in the time we're talking about, there's no way for a country to make a living through manufacture. There was no industrial revolution. There weren't factories and things like this. So how do you get money? It's either you conquer it in a war or something like that, or else you do it through trade, through commerce. If you can make your country, your town, a place where ships are coming in all the time, ships are going out, that means employment, it means building, it means money's around, the king gets 10%, whatever it is, and you generate a huge economic activity. So the Jews are all told by the king of Portugal, especially the rich ones, you can come in and you can stay here and there won't be any persecution. This is the guy, King Manuel of Portugal. However, unfortunately, very quickly, they changed their mind. The king of Portugal ended up marrying this girl, right? I don't know why, but he ended up marrying this girl. And the result, the reason, of course, is she's the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella. So that way you have an ally. And if you really want to, he hoped that they wouldn't have a son and he would take over the whole thing. But the point of the matter is, she's the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella. And so she makes a tanai, a condition. He says, I'll only marry if you kick the Jews out. Right? No Jewish Jews. And he says yes. And he promised us, swore in 10 Bibles that he wouldn't do it, but, charity is charity and business is business. And so right off the bat in 1496, when this happened, 1497, he turned on a dime and he says, all you Jews that are over here have to convert right now. That's not even something that the Spanish kings did. Right? Ferdinand and Isabella, they said, anybody who wants to stay Jewish can leave. They even said you could take your property with you. They were not tzaddikim, but they felt that they were playing fair, and just go. This guy said, no, you have to, even though you don't believe in anything, you have to convert anyway. They took children away from the parents and put in monasteries. They put adults in these hunger and starvation situations, and they literally dragged people to the baptism font. In other words, they used main force to physically compel the Jews that we're talking about over here, who you can call the Portuguese Jew if you want, because that's what they're going to be from now on, to convert to Christianity. And they did it kicking and screaming, and Muslims said we didn't want to do it. And by definition, these are the ones who didn't want to convert in the first place, otherwise they weren't going to Portugal anyway. And so the result is you have this screwball situation in which you have a large Jewish community in Portugal, and they're Jewish Jews. They've been forced under crazy circumstances, literally forced, to convert. It's an open secret. They didn't want to do it. And there you go. Now, keep that in mind. For the next 40 years, there's a huge difference between Spain on the one hand and Portugal on the other, until 1536. And that is, in Portugal, there's no Inquisition. That makes all the difference in the world. Because an Inquisition means people are watching you all the time. And anything you do possibly Jewish will be found out and will held against you, and you'll end up burning at the stake. If there's no Inquisition, then it depends. If you're sufficiently discreet, if you show up a number of times at church and do whatever you need to do, then nobody's actually watching if on a Friday night or a Pesach you get together with a couple of friends to play poker or something like that. You understand? Nobody's really going to watch if they're going to, buy maror before the Seder, or they have a menorah somewhere, things like that. If you're sufficiently discreet and you keep a low profile, then it'll be there. There weren't any laws on the books that said that you're going to go after people and anybody's caught doing this, that, and the other will be punished. In Spain, you had such laws. And even the king of Portugal, when he did it, he had enough of a guilty conscience that he not introduced the Inquisition, but they did 40 years later. So for 40 years, these Jews are bribing the government always, no Inquisition. It's bad enough you have to be Catholic, but no Inquisition. For 40 years, it's like that. It's during these 40 years that our hero was born. Gracia Mendez was born in 1510 in Portugal. So you have a funny Jewish community over there, if you can call it a Jewish community. They're always hoping that the Portuguese government will change its mind. Again, it didn't happen, but that's what they were always hoping for. It was a possibility. The situation was really, constant, twisting and turning all the time, depending on the government, who was the king, and how much money they wanted, and all that kind of business. And among the families that moved there are two that are protagonists, both from Spain. Those of us who was on a trip this past January, remember we went to Toledo as they call it, and one of the houses they show you is that of Benvenisti, right? Who was one of the court Jews, one of the big machers under the kings of Aragon. That family is one of the ones who run away to Portugal. So they're Sfaradim, they're really Spanish from Aragon. They end up in Portugal. They're from an elite Jewish family, and they're elite in the sense of having money on the one hand and having knowledge on the other. Also, Talmidei Chachamim. It's one of those elite situations. And the other family is the Weiss family, which we don't know the Hebrew name, but we know their Geisha names. When you come to Portugal, everybody's converted. It's a great honor to be converted by somebody. Have a nobleman stand as a patron of you when you're baptized, even if they're putting a knife to your throat. And so the Benvenistis are baptized by the Mendez family. The Mendez family. So they become known as Mendez, and which is not a Jewish name. And the other family, her family, was La Luna, right? Which is like Yarchi, which is like the moon. And so there you have it. And when a funny situation arises, based on what I always call the iron law of unintended consequences. And that is, now you have a situation of a bunch of Portuguese Jews who deep down feel Jewish, but now, as a result of the fact they're officially Christian, they have unprecedented open economic opportunities to them because there are no discrimination laws against them because they're officially Christians. Okay? So that means that they can go into any business or move anywhere they want to do or any of those sorts of things. And the 1490s, the early 1500s is the time to be in Portugal. Because maybe some of us remember from high school, Vasco da Gama and all these guys who actually discovered all the routes. Columbus found one, but the Portuguese found all the others. And they set up trading posts and colonies in India and China, isn't that right? I think Macau may still belong to Portugal, right next to Hong Kong, and all over the place. And it became the golden era of Portuguese commerce because the Portuguese were bringing in the spices and all the other things that the Europeans wanted. And when you bring in, they had like a monopoly, could charge top dollar, and they made a fortune. One of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons that this happens and blows up into a huge economic boom, Jews. Because now the Portuguese include a significant number of these Marrano-type people who have come in with capital and participating in this kind of trade and industry. And if you're smart and you're experienced, you have business experience, and you take advantage of existing opportunities, you can make a fortune, and that's what they do. And so the Mendez family that I spoke about before, which is the 1550's, they really get in. They bring a significant amount of capital, and they get real in at the bottom with the spice trade, which shoots up and goes viral, as they say today. And they made a mint. And as I say before, this was an era in which Portuguese commerce, this is the golden age of Portugal. They don't have one today, but they had one once, and they were the richest country, much richer than Spain, by the way. Okay? Now, into all this world is born, in 1510, this daughter, Gracia, whose official name is Beatrice, and her Christian name. And so that means she's born into a family wealthy, lives in Lisbon, Jewish by background, now Christian. Father was a Talmud Chacham, secretly Jewish, obviously. But what does that mean? It's weird. Obviously, we have we have children, we have people. I mean, it's hard enough to bring up your kid as it is if you have to spend 50% of the time or 60 or 70% of the time teaching Catholicism and the other 30% of the time teaching Judaism. You understand we're dealing progressively with the blurring of the boundaries, and yet, even though there's no regular chinuch, but this is, very shortly after the original conversion, and so a lot of Jewish information and memories are there. And we'll see in a story, she obviously was brought up, you might say, with the mother's milk, with a heavy amount of Yiddishkeit, even though, for the majority of her life, she's a Catholic. Right? And this is the double life, which makes the Marrano episode so tragic, but also so fascinating for us in a human level. I repeat, father was a well-to-do businessman, but he also knew how to learn. Did he have Hebrew books around the house? Maybe in Portugal in those days you could, because there's no Inquisition. But it's not too safe. You understand? I mean, if you get caught once or twice, you can be in real trouble. And so, what does it mean to be raised in those eras? When she's 18 years old, she gets married to this Francisco Mendez, from the 1550's, and they're all related. And all these Portuguese Jews are second or third cousins in one way or another, and they're all part of a commercial network, and it's elites marrying elites, and surprise, surprise. But anyway, she has this it's the wedding of the season. It's known in Portuguese history, and the cathedral in Lisbon. Their marriage contract will become a major site of halachic discussion in the Chail and Shubas literature of 30 years later. I have the farm over here, if we get to it tonight, simply because of the very interesting way, when rich people marry, you're talking about prenups galore, and you're talking about all kinds of dowry and other kinds of things written into it, and it's really interesting. I mean, the halachic issue, I'll just tell you right now, was that in Portugal, the custom was, among the non-Jews, that the wife gets 50% of the estate before you even talk about it. So what I mean is, if the husband predeceases the wife, she gets 50%, and then we'll talk about the rest. You see? In the Jewish law, it's not like that. So what happens when she gets to Jewish territory? And it gets really interesting. They have one child, a daughter. Right? They call Reina, or Malka, as you call it in Yiddish, Spanish. Here we have the issue of converso marriages. They count, they don't count. This is going to be, once again, a huge tangle of halachic pathology. In the 16th century, particularly in the 17th century. From the strictly halachic point of view, and I don't want to get too technical over here, there's a huge amount of response and all these sorts of things, because this is a screwball situation in reality. I'm talking about here. The Gemara never thought of these kind of cases up, and yet here it is. What happens, to give you one example, the well-known case in the Rivash back after 1391, where this lady got married. He and she are both Jewish. It's a very well-known case, They're both Jewish, and they lived here in Spain, and they were in the wrong place in the wrong time. So in other words, they were all converted in the 1391 riots, and subsequently they're Christian, and then they get married, and the wedding is performed by a Catholic priest who was Jewish, and the friends all in the cathedral all Jewish, and so forth. Wait a second. and they're married for a short amount of time, but she's a Yiddish Yid, and the husband turns out not to be. And then when the coast is clear a few years later, she says, now we can get the heck out of here and go to North Africa, not that far away, and we can live as Jews. And he says, I kind of like it here. I got used to this, This Christian thing not so bad. And what do you do then? So she doesn't argue with him. One day she goes out shopping, and she doesn't go shopping. She gets on a boat, and next thing you know, she's in Algiers. And he's not going anywhere. And she's 22 years old. And what do? Is she married? Then is she in a guna? Right? I mean, she's not going to get a get from that guy. So what I mean, this is a real story. So what do you just happen in 1401? So what do? And it was no joke, because according to the regular rules, she should be married and stuck and all the rest of it. And the big rabbi at that time in Algiers, the Rivash, who was the big rabbi in Spain, who ran away and all that sort of thing, who suffered terribly himself during the 1391 persecutions, he has a whole halakhic business to say that she's not married in the first place. It's a kind of argument that Rav Moshe Feinstein used with the Reformed Jews. The ceremony wasn't an Orthodox ceremony, that's for sure. And even though everybody there was Jewish, but it wasn't done Kedas Moshe Yisrael, and so on and so forth. At the end of the story, she's not married, which was interesting. That's one of 1,000 possible scenarios that jam up the halachic works in the 1500s as well, when you get these waves of people coming in. How do I know you're really Jewish? How do you know, were you married, were you not married? Is there yibum? Is there, 1,001 issues that pop up all the time. Okay, now, we're dealing with elite families, rich. When I say rich, I'm not exaggerating when I say it over here, not Fortune 500, it's Fortune 510. Okay? This Mendez family makes a ton of money in the 1500s. Okay? And I mean, they have a monopoly with the King of Portugal. It's a sweetheart deal where they take off the thing, and he gets the second half and all the rest of it. Those are interesting economic history. I could describe it later. So, two brothers. Very typically, there are two Mendez brothers, Francisco and Diogo. The Hebrew names are, Moshe and Chaim. But then Francisco and Diogo. And Francisco tells his brother Diogo, which is Spanish for James, you go up here, where I'm pointing right here, which we call today Belgium, which is at that particular time, a part of Spanish Empire. And Netherlands, Antwerp. This is the golden age of Antwerp. When Antwerp was part of this spice trade, just take it from me, and the Portuguese, brought all the goods there, and from there it goes to the rest of Europe, and the Belgians, the Antwerp people made money hand over fist. And Antwerp, although it belongs to Spain, it has no Inquisition yet. Okay? And so that comes a place where a lot of Moranos and those types, the new Christians, the conversos, will go over there. And he wants them there for commercial reasons, like the Rothschilds move brothers around, right? You want to have a branch in that place. So this is nice. He gets the government contracts over here. The ships are sent over here. It's sold all over here. The profit margin is out of this world, and everybody's happy. Now, these were the Rothschilds of the 16th century. Believe me when I say that. They have a network of agents, obviously, all over Europe and all over the Middle East for commercial businesses. But meanwhile, you have intelligence agents, don't you? Just like the rich banks and the Rothschilds of the 19th century. They really have people all over this place who are dealing with them in terms of commerce. Okay? Let's put it this way. You got to know, as far as your business is concerned, if there's a war going on in some place or another. You got to know, as far as your business is concerned, is the queen still in charge over here? Did somebody cut her throat? Yeah, get it? It's not a matter of gossip. It's a matter of business. It's a matter of money. And so it's an interesting world that we're talking about over here. In Portugal, back home, the Jews kept trying until 1536 to stave off the inevitable no Inquisition. They kept bribing the king, getting to the government, doing all the rest of it, but finally it's too late. Okay, in 1536 they introduced the Inquisition, and then it's bad news. And from 1536 on, you have a huge, constant trickle, if I can use that expression, out of Portugal. Everybody knows what's good for them. Get the heck out of there. You move somewhere else, because that's not the way to go. Many of the Moranos who moved to Turkey and Italy and places like this do so after 1536 from Portugal. People don't know that. They think it's all after 1492, but that's actually not the case. Our family, Francisco, he already, once the Inquisition is in there, it's not unknown that, even though they call themselves Mendez, but really they're Benvenisti, even though they say they're Catholics, but they do some Jewish things. He already starts to get messages to come to Inquisition headquarters and that sort of thing, and he dies from fright and things of this nature a year later. He wasn't an old man. But I'll tell you, again, but for the last time, imagine what kind of nerves and stress to be Jewish in Spain and Portugal in the time I'm talking about. I mean, it's like living under Hitler. Because if you're ever caught, this is the Inquisition. First they catch you, then they interrogate you. You are going to talk. The torture, it is what it is. So anyway, the husband dies. So how old is she? She's 27. And, that's right, she's 27. And in the will, first of all, he left half the money to her anyway. That was the law. The other half of the money is like this. He says, I want you to run the business, the empire. Okay? I have a brother over there, Diogo, in Antwerp. The two of you run the empire together. Not because it's his wife, because you can't afford to lose the money just for someone's wife. She has a natural ability as a CEO. You understand? Just think for a moment what I'm talking about in the 16th century of running commercial. Every day is coming in correspondence. You got to keep track of the money coming in, the money going out. You understand what I'm saying, right? You have to constantly know about the ships everywhere and what the prices are, and run the network of agents. You're a banker. You're a multinational. You're lending money to governments, and you have to cover all. It's just incredible amount of skill and pressure you have to just be able to deal with. And the husband says this wife is the one to do it. And so it's interesting. She's basically the executor of the whole estate, aside from her half, and she's given to run the business with his brother in Antwerp. Okay. Anyway, she moves to Antwerp herself. It's not safe to be in Portugal. There's an inquisition there. In Antwerp, at that time, there's no inquisition, and so that's where she goes. She comes in, of course, as a zillionaire. She's not coming in stamazoi. She comes in with her daughter. She also comes in with her sister. Here we come a soap opera. She has a sister, Brianda. The sister is younger and dumber. It's not true that all siblings are alike. I know you're shocked to hear that. She's also not as frum, it turns out. And that's a matter that we're also not unfamiliar with. Right? Not every sibling feels the same way, particularly in the screwball circumstances I'm talking about in the 16th century in Spain and Portugal. Not everybody feels as devoted or undevoted to Judaism when they risk their life with it. Who knows? Maybe because she's older, her father taught her more, or the mother. We just don't know. As I told you before, in general, now begins a general exodus of Jews from Portugal, whoever can get out and whoever's smart. Some go, this is very controversial, some Jews leave Portugal and will go to the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, as you can see over here, hopefully on the map, all the way on the right, which is huge. Look at this whole area. It's half of Europe, or a third of Europe, and it's the whole Middle East. And it's a little more than that also. It's North Africa. The Turkish Empire, at that particular time, as we'll see, allowed Jews to practice Judaism. So if you run away to there, you can come out of the closet and be Jewish. Many do not choose to do that, including Gracia Mendez. Many say, I don't feel comfortable in the Arab world, in Muslim society. I don't feel comfortable in 100 ways. After all, everybody is in this room right now. They're not in Israel. They feel whatever the reason is. And therefore they choose to move to other Christian countries, in many of which it's still usher to be Jewish, but there's no inquisition. You know what I'm saying? Not that they move to countries where they can come out of the closet. It's strange. They move to countries, it's going to sound very weird, but you will perhaps understand what I mean. They're used to a double life. They feel comfortable with a double life. To them, the perfect world is where you're totally free to practice the double life and nobody's watching you. Get it? A frum Jew to them is someone, definitely they're Catholic, they go to church all the time and all the rest of this, but they're totally able, to keep Shabbos in some way or another and to practice Passover and some of the other holidays. That's a free world. Because to the person who's used to a prison life, anything that's 3 inches bigger is not a jail anymore. Okay? This was very controversial because strictly speaking from the Jewish point of view, this is very bad. It should be that a person do his best, her best, to get out of there and go to a place where you can practice the Torah, right? A man or woman. If somebody's stuck there, all right, they're stuck there. But if you have an opportunity to get out and you choose your opportunity to go out and instead you move to a place like Antwerp or Italy or someplace along those lines, England. Many of them go as Moranos, by the way, to England. That's why some people speculate that Shakespeare and their Jews are Moranos, maybe from the Merchant of Venice. Why would you go there in countries where Judaism is prohibited? They feel that's the environment they're comfortable with. It's interesting. Many will go to southern France, in Bayonne and those areas, Marseille, and will be there for hundreds of years in Bordeaux, and it'll be an open secret. But for one reason or another, the French never introduced an Inquisition. So it's really strange. This lady we're talking about over here moves to Antwerp, okay? And she and her brother-in-law, her late husband's brother, they run this commercial empire together, one of the big firms in the world, and they hobnob with the aristocracy and the royalty. Because when you're rich, everybody wants to be your friend. That's what I've been told. Okay? The what's that? Right? The fact is, though, it's remarkable. You know, the Emperor Charles V, the regent of the Netherlands, the French royal family, everybody wants to be friends with a millionaire, even if they have a Jewish background. Okay? And it's really strange. They end up, as I say, moving in the highest circles. The period we're talking about of her life coincides with the reign of one of the most remarkable rulers in European history, the Emperor Charles V. If you remember it, we were in Spain, where they say it's Charles V in Germany and Carlo Primo in Spain, in España. Through a series, he's a Habsburg. And maybe you remember from high school or something like this, through marriage alliances, they pulled off amazing coups. And so I don't want to spend 5 minutes, because it would take me 5 minutes to explain how it was, through the fact that his mother was the daughter of these two kings, of Ferdinand and Isabella, and his father was the son of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian. And so as a result, when his parents died, this young man at the age of 16, who lived and was brought up here in Belgium and in the Netherlands, all of a sudden became both the king of Spain, meaning the king of Castile and Aragon, because Ferdinand and Isabella didn't have any other kids, so he's the one. And then he also became the Holy Roman Emperor, thanks to his father. And so he's the ruler of Germany, in the large Germany, plus Spain, which also means you get this half of Italy, King of Naples, and all this belonged to Spain, and of course all of South America. Okay? And the rest of the Spanish Empire around the world, which is humongous. And so the guy's incredibly powerful and wealthy. Right? Think about what I said. And he's a Habsburg Catholic Spaniard. So he's committed to all these policies against the Jews, although here he'll kill any Jew he can find. Here, because the rules in Germany are slightly different, so it's not like the Jews are simply persecuted but not killed. And it's just a very interesting parsha over there. And he's always at war with the King of France, the King of England half the time, and the Pope, and the Turks. That's how it went in those days. And you need a lot of money. In order to run an empire, in order to run armies, navies, inquisitions, costs money. Where do you get the money? So a dumb person, which he wasn't, says, I'll steal the money from everybody I see. A smart person says, if I start robbing all the bankers, nobody want to do business around here. And so you're torn between a rock and a hard place. And what you end up doing, hopefully, is maneuvering in such a way that you try to encourage economic activity, but you try to skim off as much as you can with the agreement of the billionaires and zillionaires with whom you hobnob. And here he's dealing with, as I say, the Mendez family, Jews by background. And here we have our lady who's 30 years old, right, Beatrice, Gracia Mendez. At that time, she does, and this also happens a lot, especially with the Rothschilds. 2 brothers marry 2 sisters. In other words, who does she marry? She has Diogo in Antwerp. So she marries her. No, she can't. She was already married to the brother, but her younger sister marries him. Okay, the younger sister, as I said before, was totally left out of the will. The younger sister is dumb. Okay, can't run a business, as you'll see. The older sister, Gracia Mendez, she can run a business, but you want to keep everything in the family. And so anyway, 2 brothers marry 2 sisters, which is very productive of soap operas. Not because any scandals occur, but because there'll be a lot of fights over money. Okay, I know such a thing has never happened in families in Baltimore, but it happened elsewhere. Okay, all I can tell you is that it gets really interesting. This brother has also 1 daughter. So Gracia Mendez and her husband, they have a daughter, and the brother, Diogo Mendez, and his thing have a daughter. I'm not going to give a chart like in Uvumba's Who's Who. We're already talking about the 1540s. By this time, little by little, the Inquisition is getting closer and closer to Antwerp. They're going to introduce it. If it's not exactly Inquisition, people are having bigger nose to look who's doing Jewish things or not. Diego is arrested once or twice for being Jewish or doing Jewish things. Even though he's a rich and powerful merchant, he's a billionaire and all the rest of it, it's scary. But he's rich. So he high-priced lawyers, high-priced lobbyists, and they get out. That's the way it goes. Rich people know how to do it everywhere. I'm serious. You know what the system is, you find out what you need to do, if you got the money to do it, you do it. And so he gets off. But once again, the whole thing was so frightening and so scary that he eventually dies from fear. He got a heart trouble and all the rest of it. Look, I'm not a doctor. We don't know what exactly he died from. We just know that both brothers died after having an encounter with the authorities. In his will, he leaves everything to the Gracia, to the sister-in-law, nothing to his wife. Okay? Well, for obvious reasons. I've said it wrong. He leaves her this much to the wife, but she's the executor will and all the rest of it. Do we have material here for 10 novels? Need I tell you what happens? But obviously the point is like this. Beatrice has emerged as an economic superwoman. Just that's who her talents are. The sister, not. So that's the way it goes. Now, on her own, she becomes now the richest Jewish woman in the world. For all I know, maybe the richest Jewish woman ever. She also begins to become involved. Now that she's totally on her own, there's no men involved in the situation. She's running the whole thing herself. And not only, and by the way, she kind of like doubles the fortune. But in addition to doing, because the economy was good at that time, but in doing doubling the fortune, she becomes the Jewish Scarlet Pimpernel. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, the Scarlet Pimpernel. That's the famous novel. That was my mother's favorite movie from the 1930s. Scarlet Pimpernel, of course, is organizing rescues of French aristocrats from the guillotine. Okay? He's always sneaking them out. Some people pretend like they don't know what I'm talking about. It's all right. She has a whole she begins whole networks to rescue Jews from Portugal, to rescue Jews from the Inquisition. It takes money. She's got the money. She has a network. She actually develops an underground railroad. It's quite remarkable. If somebody wants to escape, how do you get out if you're a regular family from Portugal? How do you get out? Everything costs money, costs bribes, costs, to keep it low. There does exist a clandestine, we don't know 3/4 of this, 4/5 of this, but we know it existed. She sets up a whole network in Lisbon and Oporto and other places like that in Spain itself. And, you have to be very discreet, but if you want to leave and you want to get out to be Jewish, there's somebody you can talk to, and it will be made possible for you. And when you get out there, wherever you land, there'll be somebody to help you get a job and find a house. And if you're poor, this is unbelievable. There'll be money. This you'll really appreciate. There'll be money to marry off your daughters, to a dowry. You understand? To pay for the wedding. It's quite remarkable. And this she does it on her own. As I said before, we're talking with somebody who's quite remarkable. Word gets out, obviously, in the 1500s. You can't hide anything. Even today, you can't hide anything. Next thing you know, the Emperor Charles V and his agents are finding out there's a Jewish activity going on, all the rest of it. And so she has to fight once again with high-priced lawyers, the highest price that there are, and the best lobbyists and bribes and this and that and the other. But it works. That's how, money talks. That's what I've been told. And it certainly talked at that time. And so she's always one step ahead of the authorities, as you were, always having to fight another illegal battle. But a person that I'm talking about is a business person who understands this is part of the price of business. Correct? If you're going to be Jewish things on the side, you just have to figure that off the top. A certain percentage of your income is going to go into doing these kind of tricks and shticks. And she's perfectly willing to do it. And she, there's a certain time when I can't give you all the details because that really would take way too long. But it's out there, and it's also in the Shalos and Chuvas literature for various reasons. They seize her goods. She has to get the goods unseized. They, arrest her. She has to get herself unarrested. They're going to have a court case on this day. You have to make it that the court case goes away. Happens in Baltimore, happens in Antwerp, happens all the time. And on the other hand, an unmarried, converso, rich Jewish woman is in danger. because everybody wants to marry you, because they're all in love with you. Right? And what's more scary is, wait a second, what's more scary is she has a young daughter. And now she has an unmarried sister. And she has a niece who's young. And nobody's going to pull the wool over this lady's eyes, but they can pull the wool over someone else's eyes. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, for purely altruistic reasons, this nobleman and that one always wants to propose marriage, and they want to make her the Duchess of this, that, and the other, strictly for, as I say, romantic reasons. The Emperor Charles V, who had all these wars and countries run all the time, has a whole correspondence with his sister, who's the ruler of the Netherlands, saying, there's a Spanish nobleman who's done so-and-so, and he wants to marry her, and I want you to facilitate it. And Gracia Mendez has to keep telling, who's friends and plays chess with the, with the princess, and whose, what should I say, her nephew is at the University of Louvain, together with the nephew of the emperor, the future Emperor Maximilian. He's participating in jousting and all. These are all secret Jews. Okay? She always has to say like this. He said, let's talk about the wedding of Eunice. Not yet, she's too young. Let's talk about next week. Let's talk about next month. The princess calls her in for a thing. I can't come right now. I'm indisposed. My health is very delicate and all the rest of it. It's you understand that it's really not funny. Okay? And sooner or later, somebody's going to go and grab this girl, and they're going to marry. They're going to say it's a marriage, and they'll take the money away, and you'll find yourself in a helpless situation. As a result of all this, she says, I'm getting out of Antwerp. She didn't tell anybody, but you're going to move from here. She started here, you move here, and go to Italy. Okay? As you can see over here, here's better. Here you can see the map of Italy. Italy wasn't a country at that time, but a bunch of countries. Is that correct? Here's the Kingdom of Naples in the south, which belonged to Spain. This is called the Papal States, a very important part of our story, because it's the kingdom owned by the Pope. The Pope wore two hats. One, he's the head religiously of the Catholic Church. Of course, that's one thing. He still is today. In addition to that, he was the ruler of a country at that time, given to him long, long ago in Charlemagne's time in the Middle Ages, called the Papal States. This is what the Renaissance popes in the 1500s were always fighting. The Borgias and Julius II and the others, they actually fought wars and led wars to conquer territory for the Papal States from other Italian princes. And up here is Venice, which is a very important power and republic and an empire, and some little states next to Venice. All these play a part in our story because she goes to Venice. And when she goes to Venice, it's because the headquarters of a commercial empire. You can run a business from Venice. And Venice does not have an inquisition, but Venice is a ghetto. Venice is a Jewish community. This is something you didn't have in Antwerp or in Portugal. And how do you interact with a Jewish community when you want so much to be Jewish, but you got to watch your step? It's very tricky. The Venetian government says, come on in, we want you to run your business over here, but really they have her eyes on her money. Of course, she doesn't have the money in a box. A person I'm talking about has the money invested and scattered all over Europe. Correct? They have $1 million here, a couple million there, a couple million there. That's how it goes. She will have trouble from time to time, as huge corporations do today, because this government here caused trouble and they want to take the money in that one. But that's part of the business. You understand? And she ends up in Venice. Here, the soap opera kicks in, because by this time the sister has been cut out of everything. Says, why am I cut out of everything? I want to be half, or I want my portion. And she says, no, it's not really a good idea. And they get in such a quarrel that the sister goes to the Venetian government and she says, my sister, Gracia Mendez, is secretly a Jew. Therefore, she should be arrested and I should be given all the money. Now, she's so stupid, she doesn't realize that if that ever happened, she would have that money for 5 minutes. You understand? She and her little daughter, Gracia La Chica, the little one, they'd be swept up by some Italian gigolo guy in 10 minutes. She was just dumb. But she didn't see it. As a result, she gets arrested again, back to the lawyers, the high-priced lobbyists, and all the rest of it. They have them in Venice, too. And she relocates down a little bit next to it to Ferrara, which is a separate little country, the Duchy of Ferrara, whose rulers, exceptionally among the Renaissance princes, like Jews. When I say like Jews, they like Jewish money. But that's good enough, too. They don't mind if Jews move in there because they help the economy. That's just fine for the 1500s, for the 16th century. And here, for the first time, she starts to take serious steps in coming out of the closet. She's not totally not Catholic, but she now attends the synagogue. Happened to be that in the Duchy of Ferrara, you already had another Gracia Mendez type. You had a high, famous person that I can't talk about tonight, Bienvenida Barbanel. She's a niece of the famous Barbanel. High education, high money, high culture, Italian and Jewish. And she's very, held in very great esteem. They had these Jewish grand dames once upon a time. And she's held in great esteem by the Duchess of Ferrara and all that kind of stuff. Patron of the arts, patron of the Jewish arts. Ferrara becomes, under these two women who are here, the headquarters for Kiruv. And what I mean is, this is a group that is Sephardic. In Gracia Mendez's case, it's actually Portuguese, very, very narrow. As I told you before, she's already running a Scarlet Pimpernel network to rescue people and try to bring them to Yiddishkeit to the degree possible. And one of the things you need is a apparatus, an infrastructure for Kiruv, and so books. They publish now the Murano, the copy of the Torah with a Spanish translation. R.E. Kaplan type books come out there. It's a very fascinating, once again, I can't go into great detail, but they're all paid for by these two women, particularly by Gracia Mendez. You have them always that they're in there because she says you got to get books out there to help these people, because as I said before, even when you run away, you still don't know exactly what Judaism is. And it's half your mind is Catholic simply because that's how you're brought up. You get it? And so to provide the information, we have a remarkable situation. She really runs a huge underground network out of Ferrara. It's just incredible. And the result is that it becomes a major, well-known kind of phenomenon, which is not good for her, right? If it gets known she's very active in Jewish activities, in Renaissance Italy, right next to where the Pope in Venice lives, is the problem. Venice calls her back to arrest her. She has to once again get lawyers and get out of that sort of thing. This dumb sister who told on her to the Inquisition, she has to get, she has to beat her in court. This dumb sister knows that there's a lot of money in France, because Lyon once upon a time was the headquarters of the silk trade, so they have a lot of money invested over there. She sends a French lawyer to France to say that money should be taken away because they're really Jewish. It should be given to her. Why do I say she's really dumb? What did the lawyer do? I'm shocked, right? Okay, because he said, like, it's both sisters are really Jewish, so give the money to me. You understand? She just wasn't, she wasn't a player. What can I tell you? And the result is that the situation gets hotter, and so eventually she goes here, and then she says, I got to get out of here, and she makes the choice. She's actually imprisoned by Venice, and when she's in the Venetian prison, which is not fun, especially to a billionaire, she's in Venetian prison. She's not out of tricks. She invokes her trump card. What's her trump card? She has commercial relations with the Ottoman Empire, with the Turkish Empire. Look how close Turkey is to Italy. It's right next door. In the 1600s, constant wars between Turkey and Venice. Okay? She has a daughter who's not married yet. Hold on for a second. This is how clever she is. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire is Suleiman the Magnificent. Right, there he is. The greatest of the Turkish emperors. They conquered huge territories. He's the one who conquered Hungary, by the way. Budapest and all the rest were added to the Turkish Empire. And he was in Iraq. And a very smart guy. His doctor, you'll be shocked to learn, is Jewish. Moshe Hamon. Moshe Hamon has a young son. Gracia Mendez says, I haven't married my daughter off yet. If anybody is interested in helping me, we could have interesting conversations regarding this subject. Okay? So this doctor uses influence with Suleiman the Magnificent to make sure that the Turkish ambassador in Venice goes to jail, and he says, I guess you're here by a Turkish citizen. Okay? Here by a Turkish citizen under protection from the Sultan. Leave her alone, and Venice is afraid to mess with that, and so she gets out of jail. Right? And with the idea that eventually, so now they never do marry. But no. Which just goes to show you how clever she was. Anyway, she never said she would marry. She said we could have serious discussions regarding the shidduch. Take it from me. It ain't there till it's there. Now, this means that she's going to cross over here and eventually go to what you call the Republic of Ragusa, Dubrovnik, I'm hoping when we have this trip to Italy that Ari and I are working on now, hopefully in November, we're going to go to a bunch of these places. You'll see the actual sites of the Daring Do. But anyway, she eventually makes it and crosses the border into the Ottoman Empire and crosses over like this and gets to Constantinople. In the 1550s, when it is in its peak years, capital of the Ottoman Empire, Suleiman, as I said before, is a great ruler, and he is not opposed to Jews. Nobody loves the Jews, but the Turkish Empire views the Jews as commercial plus and not a minus. The Turks couldn't care less. The Jews practiced Judaism. After all, they let the Christians be Christians, and to them, to persecute the Jews would indicate that Judaism is more stupid somehow or other in their eyes than Christianity, and they don't hold that way at all. So the best way they can rub their nose into the Christians is to give the Jews equal rights with the Christians. And this is basically the situation that happens over there. And the result is that she does very well. She gets to see the Sultan. He's happy that a Fortune 5 company is moving to Turkey. She runs the empire with the same network out of Constantinople. She rents out the richest palace in Constantinople, the Belvedere Palace, which is overlooking the Bosphorus Straits. In other words, it's the lifestyles of the rich and the famous, which she redecorates. I know you'd be shocked to hear that. Which she totally redecorates, including among the two most interesting rooms is the shuls. When I say the shuls, it's a part of the palace is a men's shul next to a woman. No, it's Ezra's Nashim. Okay? But we're not talking about Ezra's Nashim over here. This could be one of the only cases I know where the shul was built and designed by women, the whole shul. Therefore, the men's section is fine. They have pictures of it with their own Kodesh, all the rest of it. The women's section, which is an adjoining room with a large square with like it's not clear, a curtain or a lattice work, is gorgeous. It's brocade, it's tapestries, it's this, that, and the other. It's a billionaire woman's mind run wild. You understand? But why not? That's her. Get it? Look, it's my shul. It's my palace. Okay, and it's amazing. I think it's the only, like I said before, I'm not sure, but I believe it's the only case of the type at that time. Ambassadors and other foreign visitors wanted to visit the palace to see the women's shul. Understand? It was renowned. There's artwork there and all this kind of stuff. Everything according to the din, of course, but nevertheless, fancy de la schmancy. And it is an indication over here of the fact that, what shall I say? She found a safe spot. And she stayed there until she died. When she died at the age of 59. Now, that's the introduction to our subject tonight. What I wanted to talk about in the title won't take too long. What I want to take in the title is the following. Let me add one more point. She, as I said, I think you're getting across, I hope, some of. I never met her, and none of us ever will. But we get an idea of who she is and what kind of a person she is. And also in the Jewish end. And in the Renaissance, it's famous that you have famous women patrons of the art. So she's a Renaissance billionaire. She's going to patron of the arts. Jewish art. There is no Jewish art. So Jewish art is scholarship. You understand? She builds and bankrolls whole yeshivas, synagogues, similar things we'll see later on. She has a whole plan to set up a Jewish state in the Galilee. She buys Tiberia and Sfat from the Sultan. She had big plans. Okay, patron of the art means classy. You are providing Jews, especially Portuguese Jews running away and know nothing from anything, the opportunity to have high-level Jewish scholarship in unprecedented ways. And, send me the bill. There's no Mishalachim over here involved or anything. It's one person doing it because there's plenty of money coming in all the time. Believe me, she has to bribe and pay off the Turks, as you can just imagine, just stay in business. But this is the price of doing business, as I said before. Okay. Now our story shifts. In 1554 is the year she got to Constantinople, so she was 44 years old. In fact, she has a whole triumphal entry. It's like a movie scene. The foreign ambassadors describe it. She has 50 outriders and, a golden carriage and all the rest of it, because she wants to impress the Goyim. so they'll treat her well, so they'll treat the Jews better. And they do. There's the Ottoman Empire. I guess we can see it over here. Meanwhile, she got out just in time because she came there in 1554. In 1555, the nemesis, the great enemy of the Jews, becomes the Pope. Cardinal Carafa, leader of the anti-Semites, is elected Pope Paul IV. Cruel, pitiless, bad person. That's what he called himself. He said, I don't know why they elected me. I'm cruel, pitiless, and bad. The grouchy nature. And he's elected Pope because they say it's the Protestant Reformation. We need somebody of iron will to bring the Catholic Church back to recover some of the territory it lost. And he does that to some degree or another. He's a super duper duper Christian, and among other things, he hates and loathes Jews. Okay? Starting from Pope Paul IV, he's the one that burns all the books, all the Gemaras. That's a talk I'm going to do on some other occasion. We have actually in the Hebrew College, I saw the other day, the BHI now in Towson. They actually have some rare books. I couldn't believe it. They were saved from the flame. They're like the only copy or one or two copies from the things that were burned by the Pope back in the 1500s. But that we'll do some other time. Not only does he burn the books, but he is the one who issues the famous decree called Cum Nimis Absurdus. Here it is, where you can see, where is it now? Inasmuch as it is, how does it go over here? Since it is completely senseless and inappropriate, being a case where Christian piety allows Jews whose guilt of their own doing are condemned to eternal slavery access to our society and to live among us, and they're without gratitude to Christians, and instead of the gracious treatment they return invective among themselves instead of the slavery which they deserve, they manage to claim superiority. We who recently learned that the Jews have instantly invaded Rome from a number of papal states and territories, they not only mingled with the Christians, wearing no identifying garments, they dwell in homes, in other words, in fancy houses, the most noble dwellings, states and territories, conducting business. The Jews are supposed to be low down, downtrodden, just to be second, third rate, as a sign of their rejection of Yashka. They're living better than we do, right? And he said, we're going to stop this right now, and he does. This is a very famous or infamous decree, Cum Nimis Absurdus, where he says, we're going to bring in, all the Jews have to move everywhere to a ghetto. And the ghetto has to be very small. The Jewish community can only have one synagogue. All the others will be burned down. The Jews are restricted from all the businesses except selling old clothes. The Jews are, one gezer after another, which were enforced rigorously for the next couple hundred years. After Pope Paul IV, you don't want to live in a Catholic country. Okay? Because their life will be on purpose made miserable. For the first time, the Catholic Church, which had all these rules in the books back in the Middle Ages, but in the good old Middle Ages, what should I tell you? In order to make persecution, you have to have a lot of energy. Do you agree with that? You have to actually enforce all these rules and sit on somebody's back and all the rest of it. And the good old Catholic Church, they made a law, give it a little month, two, and they pay them off, and they don't care. It was honored in the breach more than the observance. Not anymore. Part of the Counter-Reformation, part of the Jesuits and all the rest of it is they're going to take the Jewish stuff very seriously. And Jews live in Italy, and Jews live in Prague, and Frankfurt, and places like this, horrible, insalubrious conditions, low life expectancy, very tough, because the Catholic Church is basically saying like this. You can't kill them, and you can't do any direct violence to them, but you can squeeze them out and put a lot of pressure on them that they'll want to convert. You can't actually threaten them, but you do everything but. And starting then, as you can see over here, no nurses, no this, not the other, you can get a little bit of an idea over here. And it becomes very cruel on the Jews. But that's not all. One of the things he does is the following. If you can see where I'm pointing right over here, this is the Adriatic Sea, between Italy on the one hand and the Turkish Empire, basically, on the other hand. Trade and commerce is everything. There's a town, Ancona, and this belonged to the Papal States. The popes, it's a little nothing town, but one of the earlier popes was smart, and what he said was, Pope Clement, and what he says is like this, we'll make this a town in which there are no rules. Any merchant can come in, and they'll pay very little taxes, so you can practice whatever religion you want, nobody will shepherd you, nobody will bother you, just do your capitalism. And we'll get 10 or 20% as taxes and all this, but the economy will boom and this will help. And basically he was taking the trade away from Venice, and it worked. And anybody can come in there. Even Portuguese Jews running away from Portugal were told by the Pope, if you'll come and do your thing and live in Ancona, there'll be don't ask, don't tell. Right? That's what it writes. He says, and if I change my mind, you have 4 months warning. It's what's written in the contract. Get it? And they do that. And as a result, Jews are here. I don't have to tell you, Jews are very big merchants in the Turkish Empire. They control a lot of trade over there. And so there's a huge amount of commerce going through Ancona, which becomes a rich city, very powerful, commerce, caravans, fleets of ships, and all stuff. The local community does very well, and the Jews are in the middle of it, and therefore everybody treats the Jews okay. Comes Pope Paul IV, and he said, I'm changing my mind. Right? They said, well, we have all these promises from the earlier Pope. He said, those promises are hereby revoked. Anybody we find was a Marano, that is to say, was born in Portugal, was a Christian, is now practicing Judaism, and bring evidence to it, he's subject to arrest by the Inquisition, and they arrest them all. And not only they arrest them, they publicly interrogate them, and they burn them. Okay? It's a famous, terrible episode. It's well-known in Sephardic Jewish history and their piyutim. Here are the names of the famous martyrs that are done over here. Some of these guys jumped into flames saying Shema Yisrael. It really happened. You understand? And they say, I don't believe in Christian. Let's put it this way. If you did teshuva, get it? This is how the system works. If you said, I'm sorry, and what I did wrong, I'm not going to do it again, then you only have to work in the slave mines or in the galley ships or things like this. So if these guys are burned, it means they turn down the possibility of going back to Christianity and saving their lives. So they say, we did this, we're not doing this again. It's quite a story, and as you see in the next piece over here, your whole piyutim imposed, Shuma Shamayim Charb Mal Shever Basami Koder Elov, and it tells you the month when it happened over here, and Harugi Malchus Lefur Derech Kol Yivchu Al Kitzinai, all who mourn over my princes, Hasreif Asher Saraf Adonai, and he goes on, and he names names, and it's one of the famous keynotes over here. Let's see over here, where he mentions, here we go, Reb Shimon ben Menachem, and Yosef Shmuel Nakon, and Avram Paraklon. They tell you each one was taken one by one, and the result is that a lot of people are shocked because the Pope broke his word. I'm shocked. And it's all, wait a second, and it's also true that the Jews who were in Ancona who were not Marranos, and therefore not touched by this law, were very turned off, because you saw every day, people write about it, they drag people in the street and they torture them publicly, and they have these terrible burnings and things like this. And so what does the Jewish world, quote unquote, do about this? Well, if you're in Turkey, you're safe, right? Not only that, if you're a Turkish Jew working in Italy, you're safe. But if you're an Italian Jew, you're also safe. If you're a Portuguese Jew, you get burnt. Some run away and they go right to the next country north, in Urbino, as we'll see, the Duchy of Urbino. Others are caught and burnt. So what does the Jewish world do about it? The Jews who run away north, the Portuguese Jews who run to Urbino, they say like this. They say, this Duke is going to let us in because we're going to tell him that we're going to get the Jews everywhere to put a boycott on Ancona, break the back of the Pope economically, and redirect all the traffic to the Urbino port, which is Pesaro. It's a plan, right? It's a plan. And then he'll get more revenue, and this will encourage the others, and this will accomplish several things. But it's the only Nakama you can get on the Pope. What can we do? We're helpless. We don't have any other possibility. This becomes the question of the hour. Should you do this, or should you not do this? Some of these Jews who burned were agents of Gracia Mendez. In other words, employees of her business. She complains to the Sultan of Turkey about this. And she says, if they're employees of mine, they have the protection of the Turkish government, why don't you do anything about it? And she pays them up. In fact, look at it. You won't believe this. Everything's now on the YouTube. I found a piece there. It's about 5 minutes or so. I don't know if somebody did it. It's just a little dramatization. It's not good. But this is the part where there she is. There's the Sultan of Turkey, and here's Gracia Mendez, and she's telling him, do something about my employees that hurt over there. Okay, you see how classy, and there's a little bribe or something like that, a gift, and he writes to the Pope and he says what happened over there. And the Pope says, any money that belongs to you, we'll send you back. Any Turkish subject, okay, but anybody who was a Christian who secretly practiced Judaism, that's my rishus. You understand? That's not a subject of Turkey. You punish the bad Muslims, I punish the bad Christians. The Pope's not going to go to war over this, and so the result is that these. You want to fix this? The result is that the wars are. That he kind of gets away with it. So the question is, what are the Jews going to do about it? If you can't rely on Turkey. What are the Jews going to bet? So the big question becomes in 1555, 1556, should the Jews do anything about it? And the Portuguese Jews, and especially the Jews who ran away to Pizarro, they say put a boycott on Ancona, send all the money this way, deprive the Pope of his money, hit him where it counts, and that'll teach him a lesson, and he'll be afraid to mess with anybody because there's only one language you can do with anti-Semites. You have to kick him in the teeth, and anything else, you're fooling yourself, right? The appeals to mercy and all this don't work. There's one universal language, and that's the language we have to use in fighting this guy, this son of a gun. It's not so simple. Gracia Mendez backs this. Not only that, she convokes meetings, and she gets all the big rabbis on her side. She gets them all in a room, and she's, I wasn't there, so I hope she didn't say I'm paying you all, so you come my thing. But that's there. You have to realize. Let me just give you one example of many that we know about, and then I'll move on. One of the biggest rabbanim of the 1500s is the Mari ben Lev, if you know anything about the Sos quotes him all the time. Big Sephardic posek, born in the Yugoslavia area, and hundreds of shalos and shuvas. Very, very big posek, not a little one. He was a rabbi in Salonika. He had a Choshen Mishpah case, as he had every day. Money case between people. See, he ruled in favor of A and against B. B killed his son. That happens. You get it? It's well known. Jonas and Eshes said this long ago. It's a very well-known statement that you look at people and imagine the following situation. Somebody prepared a whole Shabbos meal or a whole bar mitzvah meal, and then something tray fell into it. Chas v'shalom. They go to Rabbi. Rabbi looks at it. He tries his best, and he can't find an answer. Sometimes it's a bummer. And he's like, I'm sorry. I really don't feel good about this, but it's treif. And she said, okay, or he said, okay, and they throw it away. They bite the bullet. There's no hard feelings. And yet the same person will go and have a sichsuch, have an argument with someone else over $80. And you'll decide in favor of A over B. Oh boy, B will kill you. They'll never get over it. And they'll call you a crook, and you're bribable, and you're this, and it's honest, and they'll go after you. Why? Because it's not you don't mind losing the money. You can't see the other one win. You see? The same person I'm talking about didn't mind when they spent $300 on the Shabbos meal or I don't know what, and they had to throw it out. But over the $50 that he lost to someone else, they do so. So he had two sons. One died that way, another one died in the mikveh. It was a terrible life. And he came to Constantinople, a broken man, and that's when she showed up over there, and she took him in and built him a whole yeshiva and everything, and she made him who he was. So people with that record are naturally going to be inclined to support her positions. And her position is one in which we say we need Jewish pride. I've been in the Gaisha world. I know how these guys operate. You don't. I've hobnobbed with the kings, with the popes, with the Venetian Republic. And there's only one language these people understand. And so maybe it'll be a short-term difficulty than others, but if the word gets out that the Jews have a response, the only response we can have, which is the response in the pocketbook, then people will think in the future 2 and 3 times before they go around and burn people, burn Jews. The only reason they do it all the time is because they know nothing will happen to them. In this world, it's cruel. If you're helpless and you're homeless, then people will take advantage of you. It ought not to be that way. In a civilized world, it wouldn't be that way, but that's not the world we live in. You see? And the truth of the matter is, all the big rabbanim backed her, and they all said they should make a boycott. And they actually had a whole meeting, and they made an 8-month boycott, and all the rest of it. Not all. You'll be surprised to hear that there was one rabbi who didn't agree. And his name was Yeshua Sansino, not a very well-known person, but he was famous at that time. Not Sephardic Italian, Italiani. And because he's Italiani, he is sensitive to the needs of the Italian Jews and not of the Portuguese Jews. And you guys are thinking about yourself, and you're talking about revenge to take care of your problems. But what do you do with the Italian Jews who are living in Ancona, who when the Pope finds out that there's a boycott against them, going to come and kill them and persecute them and torture them? That you don't care about? You understand? Why? And who told these guys to run away and offer the Duke of Urbino and make these extravagant promises and Archeshon without talking to anyone else? You get it? And who gave them the right to go in? There is two sides to it. He uses the famous halachic arguments in his response. First of all, my chaz is the dome didach sumuk tfei. How do you know your blood is redder than mine? It's the famous principle in the Talmudic law. Second of all, we have a whole question of what they call dina de malchus dina. Does the Pope have the right to these sorts of things? You say, well, he's a schmo and he's anti-Semitic, all the rest of it. He's invoking the church law. There's two sides to it, right? there's a whole big discussion of what is considered a legitimate government, or not a legitimate government, what's a legitimate application of the law versus an illegitimate application of the law. We have a story in the Talmud where Mar Shmuel said those who fought against the Persian government deserved to die, the Jews. He wouldn't say Kaddish for them. The whole business about that. And especially, who told these guys to move to a Christian country? Why didn't they come to Turkey where they could be Jewish? And now they get everybody else in trouble and want to do it. He made enough of a case, they broke the boycott. She was angry, very angry, but she didn't do anything. Not as far as I know. He writes about the pressure he was put under, all the rest of it. But it didn't happen. He also says, by the way, the Duke Urbino was also an anti-Semite. His brother, for fun, ran into a shul and took out a Torah and wrapped it around a pig and thought it was funny to get him out. None of these guys are tzaddikim. Okay? This is Geobaldo the Fourth, not Hubert Humphrey. So the result is that although she pressured the recalcitrant ones, and it didn't happen. And she, of course, took the position, you fools, right? Whatever the immediate consequences are, it might be bad consequences for the Italian Jews. I'm looking like a statesman for the Jewish people at whole. We have to be able to develop a counterpunch to our enemies. If they do not fear anything from us, then we're always going to be like a sheep among the wolves. But it didn't happen. I mean, this is the way it goes. After this comes her big lawsuit. The lawsuit is, so who gets the money in the end? She, the sister, the daughter, the niece, all the rest of it. Once again, it's a fascinating episode in the history of halacha and the shalos and shuvas, because all the big rabbis weigh, and you're talking about $1 billion estate. Right? I want you to understand what we're talking about. By the standards of the 16th century, we're not talking about a small piece over here. It's huge money. This was in the shalos and shuvas Hamabit, in the Beis Yosefs, in the Marashdam. All the big people are weighing in here because this is not a small business. All the people, except one, took the position that the marriage contract that was conceived in Portugal, even though it was done in Christian circumstances, counts, unless they favored her. The only one, it's very interesting because it was something that's against the halacha ordinarily, but they all have arguments that she was in the right, except for Rabbi Yosef Karo. He took from Tzfat, famous Beis Yosef, where he took the position, just in the Catholic Church, the whole thing doesn't count, you're kicking the Jewish law, that's what applies, all the rest of it, even though she paid for his yeshiva. You understand? He had a yeshiva of 700 students in Tzfas. And he didn't go around like the Bonaventure Rav collecting money. You understand? In the 1500s, it was interesting. And if you lived in Turkey, there was one person, as long as she was alive, that she just wrote checks. You understand? I mean, we're talking, how much is your budget for this year at yeshiva? Just give it a check. That's it. It's incredible what happened over here. I'll conclude with 1 minute about the last episode. As I said before, she was a big Zionist before that term was around. She and her nephew, she's really the one to give the credit to the nephew. She had a whole plan to buy Tiberia and Sfas and that whole area, and the Sultan gave it to her. He even named her nephew the Duke of that area, and the local Arabs didn't like it, as you can imagine, and they rioted and killed a bunch of Jews. She had the Sultan send in an army, capture the ringleaders, hang them publicly, insist that the walls of Tiberia be rebuilt, and she had all kind of plans to bring in a lot of Portuguese Jews. And in other words, it would be a Jewish state in the Galilee in the 1600s. She was the person executed. Unfortunately, she died just as it was happening. So, as I said before, I didn't meet her and you didn't either, and nobody ever will. But this is a rare case, but a real flash of insight that we have in Jewish history of the women. This is a case you find where you see character and ability and courage is not a subject of gender or anything of that nature, and that sometimes the biggest heroes of the Jewish people, sometimes, is the heroine. And I'm not saying my mother was the biggest hero of the Jewish people, but she wasn't the smallest either. And with that, I say good night.